All right, ladies and gentlemen, I still don't have an intro, but this time I have a guest, and hopefully it's not in that screen and it is instead in this screen. There you go. That's fixed now. All right, so with me today I have the in-game leader for Breakaway, J1rah Joachim, or going by the same name tag as your first name, J1rah. So it's a pleasure to have you here, mate, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks for having me on, mate. It's great to be in my first real interview, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, so obviously I've got a lot of things to ask you because I'm actually quite interested in what your opinion is on some of these, or the current standing right now of this AU scene. But to really sort of give it that old school interview vibe, I will first go into your background in CS. So how long have you actually been playing the game just in general and then competitively?
I actually haven't been playing it for long at all.
Yeah.
Mainly just started out with like MW3 and stuff, and then played like Surf and Jailbreak for like a year or two.
Lovely.
Probably been playing CS for like 4 years now, 4.5 years, something like that.
Right, and how much of that was competitive?
Probably like 2 years now competitive.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, so
roughly 2 years competitive.
Pretty quickly going in then. Did you, when you were playing CS, did you immediately know that, or how long before you realised that you wanted to sort of take it, or more professionally, I guess?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. Like as I said before, I was just playing Surf and Jailbreak for ages. I didn't even play competitive for like my first 2,000 hours or something like that. I was just chilling, and then probably in MM one day, and then someone just offered me. And I was like, yeah. It's like this rotating 10-man roster on CGA or something back in the day.
Solid. Well, the first XeshTV roster that you have is Riders. So would you consider that to be your first sort of like, I guess, semi-professional team?
So you gotta repeat that. Something just happened. It just like that day.
So your first team on XeshTV is Riders. Riders Raccoons?
Riders Raccoons. So I just keep flagging.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the OG lineup of all the lads. I think it was like me, Sterling, which is Ewan, JDK, was it Goa and Slippery Gypsy? Or
I think so. Let me actually just bring up the entire lineup for you. So I can open this one up. It's giving me some damn trouble doing it.
Yeah. It was pretty rough coming back up in the day because you just wouldn't know what you were meant to be practicing. Like everyone was learning on themselves, and then as you eventually moved up throughout the ranks, people wouldn't be able to keep up with like the practice schedule because it get more intense and stuff like that. But people weren't able to keep up the individual game. So like the Riders lineup, like the Trash Painters lineup, kept going through different iterations from when people like had to focus more in real life because it was getting a bit more intense. I think the only original players that were left are like me and Sterling, XeshTV player, but like, yeah, it was just really rough coming up because you just have to learn everything from basics. No one was there to help you with anything.
Right. So when you then obviously the next team that you went into was the Dark-Sided lineup, which I think I remember being a part of. Was that the team that, or not a part of, sorry, watching, was that team that you played with Hazza in that lineup as well?
Yeah, Hazza was in that lineup. He was my old teammate. I think we were pretty desperate to pick a player up back then, and we found Hazza. I don't know, we were just searching on XeshTV back in the day for like highest rated players that we could pick up, and Hazza was there. And he was just like, you can just go on fire. He's just like a big man with some big guns, and he can do anything in game if you put him in the right position. Yeah.
So when you were obviously creating when you were joining Breakaway, was that connection with Hazza at all present? Did that sort of either confirm your, presence in that team, or do you know what I mean? Like, did it make an impact on why you joined it?
Yeah, I know I can get along with Hazza very well. Like we're pretty good friends. Like our personalities mesh pretty well, so that probably helped me get in. And I knew that he liked the way I gel, and I liked the way that he played, and he listened to like everything that I said. But Lamas was also on breakaway, so he probably would have recommended me. And Alec had his army for a while to pick me up. And I don't know, we're pretty close in breakaway. Like all the players are pretty close friends.
Right.
I think that's important for a team that's going to be pushing forward. You can't be blaming each other for like mistakes, or you didn't play good that game, that's why we lost. You got to be pushing forward as a team. And if you're fighting all the time when you're like taking big losses, like top 4 teams, there's no way you're going to be. I guess it's top 3 now. If you're taking big losses to top 4 teams and you're top 3 teams and you're fighting against yourself, there's no way you'll be able to push forward.
Right. So
that was it's pretty big.
How long has that core of breakaway been playing together then, would you say?
Like before I joined, or?
Well, you in general, because you've been playing with you've played with a lot of those players previously especially in SYF. So how long has that been then, all up, you with that core?
I don't know. I went through different iterations. So in Darkside, as you said, I played with Hazard.
Yeah.
And then I joined it completely.
With
I
Lamas.
subbed for Streamline for like a LAN, like an AEM LAN, and I ended up joining them for a couple of months. And then I got familiar with Lamas and his play style, and our personalities kind of meshed. And then like SYF fell apart. Streamline turned into SYF once we changed orgs. And then SYF fell apart and Lamas left. And then I joined that team. So I played with a lot of the players. Like it probably was about like 8 or like 7 months that I played with Hazra and Luke, Lamas in different teams.
So how long have you been in-game leading for? Was it all of those lineups, or was there a switch at any point?
It was like way back in Trash Bandos or something. Like no one really wanted to pick it up as it always starts. Someone, I think our IGL left, or we decided to kick our IGL or something like that. And then back then, no one wanted to pick it up. And eventually I was like, oh, fuck it, I guess I better pick it up if no one else is going to do it.
Fair enough.
It was probably like the roughest learning curve ever.
It seems like there's a lot of in-game leaders that sort of end up like that. Especially, I mean, even like Azza in Renegades probably didn't want to be the in-game leader, and it just sort of gets thrown upon you, and then from there on, people always go, well, he's done it before, we'll give it to him, so I imagine that's it's almost like you accidentally fall into the trap, and then you're just there now for all eternity. You will be the in-game leader. So
it gets like that. It's hard to get out of it. I've been struggling, I've been trying to, but no one's taking it.
No one's taking it.
But like it was the roughest learning curve when I first picked it up, because no one knew like how to properly call. Like it probably took me like 3 to 6 months before I properly understood like what I was meant to be doing, and then I didn't understand. Like I barely understood the basics, and I was playing trash in game as well. And if I wasn't like with that iteration back in the day, and like if I wasn't close to those people, they probably would have kicked me or something like that.
Yeah,
because I wasn't good at calling, and my fragging went down heaps and stuff like that.
I can imagine it would definitely have a big impact on your overall playstyle. I mean, even when you're not learning it, being an in-game leader can impact your frag style. So I could imagine having to learn it on the fly would be insanely intense. So what do you think would be? What do you think, or for you exactly, would be the hardest part about learning that in-game leader role?
It's just learning things that you never thought were in CS, because there's no one really there to help you when you're like in those lower leagues. There's not many good coaches in Australia either, so you got to fend for yourself. And because the gap is so big between like there's gaps everywhere, but like the gap in top 4, I'm still learning things every day that like are big game changers, and just blow my mind that like how did I not think of this? There's just no one there to help you, so it's rough.
Because I've heard a lot of people say, oh Jesus, excuse me. I've heard a lot of people say that the AU scene is very top heavy when it comes to experience, right? It's all those players that have a lot of experience are all in those top teams, and then everybody else sort of has to sort of scrape their way up there. So you would agree with that, would you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like in EU more so in EU than NA, when they eventually get rid of agile in the top teams in EU, they'll come back down to the lower teams and they'll teach them everything. And then they're just passing on that experience and knowledge and just making the scene all more competitive. Whereas, like, when's the last time you saw a top tier IGL in Australia? There's not many of them, like top tier IGLs in Australia. Yeah. Go down to a lower tier team and pass their knowledge on.
Yeah, I mean, it could be just the infrastructure, like you're saying. You know, it's not really there yet. That higher level mines. I guess you could kind of say with Moe going down to ground zero, that's probably a good learning experience for those guys. But I can definitely agree with you there. It does seem as though there's just not really been enough time for those players to sort of move down the ranks and you know, move that experience out elsewhere. So that's probably also why it's a lot of those really are, you know, old school players. You can see parts of those teams, the immunities, sort of like spreading out into all the top teams right now, you know, with Dexter on Greyhounds, etc. So, with your in-game leading style, would you consider yourself to be more of a loose in-game leader, or do you follow a structure?
We follow a pretty heavy structure.
Yeah.
I'd say there's a lot of pressure on individual players not to make mistakes. But at the moment, during this boot camp, I'm just trying to figure out what's best for all the players.
Yeah.
And just trying to make everyone feel as comfortable as possible and just making sure that everyone's open about any problems they have with my calling or with anyone. Just so that we're going into the IEM Sydney with 100% focus and hoping that we can pull through and get a spot there.
Yeah, well, so I will be talking about IEM Sydney, obviously, because you will have a lot of expectations going into that one. So, but just quickly, though, to bridge off that, when you come into IEM Sydney, you will have a decent amount of competition. So I believe it's is it Order, Chiefs, and is it Greyhounds that you're competing against? The 4 invite teams, I guess, and as well.
They got invited. I think Avant have called already, and I think we'll be versing Avant if the seedings are how I think they'll be, because we'll be the lower seed in the invited teams, and they'll be the highest seed from core teams. So I think they've already called.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we'll be versing them, but with the IEM Sydney Derby from ESL. Since we lost to Chiefs, if Chiefs beat Order don't make it to the Derby, so that means that we only have to compete with either. That means we have to compete with Chiefs or Greyhounds, but Greyhounds have seemed pretty dominant. So if they qual, we'll only have to compete with Chiefs in the Derby. So that's ESL at the moment is probably one of the biggest tournaments going around. It's just everyone's battling. But if Order beat Chiefs, then I think it goes head to head. And I think we might lose that. I'm not too sure.
So, So building on that, when it comes to Greyhound, Order, and Chiefs, for you as an in-game leader, which team do you think? I know obviously a lot of people would say, Greyhounds is the scariest, but in your opinion, would you say it's harder to go up against a team like Greyhounds, or would you say maybe Order or Chiefs are more difficult?
I'd probably definitely. Chiefs last night, they destroyed us.
Yeah.
They've just come out. I don't know. I haven't seen it before, but like there was just this fire inside them. They were just playing really good CS. They were just like really fucking with our rotations. We just didn't know how to handle it. So it will be good demos to go back and review. But usually Greyhounds is the hardest team to play against because they play good CS better than anyone else, and that is extremely hard to beat. Like, we try to play good CS, but they play good CS on a whole other level. So it's like, there's just not much you can do against that, you know? So probably Greyhound is the hardest team to beat around. But like when they go up against a team versus Order, where their style is like completely different, that can counter Greyhound style, that's usually an interesting matchup. But for us, Greyhound's the hardest team to compete against.
Right. Give me 1 second while I switch something around, just making sure that everything's good. Okay, cool. I was just a little bit worried there that my microphone wasn't in the right place, but it was, so we're all good. But so I did want to ask you, obviously the Chiefs match happened last night, and I personally myself have noticed that it seems like Chiefs seem to struggle when it comes to Order and Greyhounds. but have almost a more dominant play style against teams of like Breakaway and Paradox and Avant than, say, an Order team does, right? Because you'll take maps off Order, and you'll take rounds off Order, and even sometimes games against Greyhound can go closer, whereas at least recently, Greyhounds seem to have this weird, especially when it comes to qualifying to things like Sydney, right? Where suddenly, all of a sudden, they just sort of tick on and they're just headshotting everyone. And I was just wondering what your opinion on why you think that happens. Is there something that you can, I guess you can feel? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Greyhounds are very like goal orientated, where it's like they'll focus on, like they'll save up a lot of stuff and they won't give like the important stuff away until a call like Sydney comes up. Like they're not going to focus much on an ESEA league that's going to lead to nothing in the end. Like it's just really money in their eyes, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas, I am Sydney, that's where the opportunities are. So they're going to put all their energy and all their focus and like save up all their strats or, all their protocols or whatever for that tournament, and a whole new beast just comes out from that. But just versing Chiefs last night, like we haven't scrimmed there recently, but they felt really like, I don't know, it was just something about them. I'm still pretty shocked, but they just destroyed us in every way. Like I just haven't seen something like that in a while. Yeah,
the Dust 2 map especially was surprising. Yeah. But I think, who do we see? Greyhounds did that recently to someone.
Yeah,
where it seems like
it was West Chiefs, I think.
Was it? Yeah. Where it's like this extremely aggressive T side that seems to come out, and it sort of had remnants of that from Greyhound. So
it might have been Order actually. Yeah,
someone. Oh yeah, it was Order. Yeah, because it was in the MDL play. It was the MDL finals where it happened. Yeah, so it just came out of nowhere with this super aggression. So I guess we can talk about maps. In your opinion, I guess obviously you're the in-game leader of Breakaway, so you could probably give an idea of what your map pool would be. But for you, what do you feel like your team's strongest maps are compared to obviously your weaker maps?
I honestly don't know. It just varies day to day, but we're going to be focusing that a lot of that in the boot camp. But we just try to play our own game a lot of the time.
Yeah. Build up what you've got already. Yeah. Fair enough.
It's pretty.
So
pretty basic.
Obviously, with that, Vertigo's coming out now. The new map pool. So I did want to get your opinion on that one. Will we see Breakaway utilizing the slidey Vertigo map pick against Greyhounds anytime soon?
Gonna have to have a team talk about that one. I haven't even gone on the map yet. I've just ignored it. Just acting like it's not real. Yeah,
just close your eyes and it doesn't exist. We'll be all right.
It's not there.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the Molotovs that people were throwing on Reddit today. Oh Jesus, it's not going to be good for you.
Just been lurking, man.
Yeah,
it's monster in the dark. But like, I feel like CS, like a new map, was needed. Like a change.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't know about Vertigo though. Maybe throw in a Tuscan or something like that, or like a good 1.6 map and just rework it.
I heard a lot of people talking about Sub-Zero as well, and
I haven't tried that map yet. But,
Santorini came out a while ago. I remember that one. Is it Santorini? I can't even remember how to pronounce that one, but I remember that one being quite interesting, very Mirage-like in the way that it played. But I think the main issue with Vertigo is obviously the speed at which it's going to happen. Like, it seems like you could get a regulation game that goes sub 30 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like a full regulation game where it's just every round's like 30, 40 seconds where they just push up to a certain site. And, maybe that's not the worst thing in the world. But it's definitely almost an entirely different meta to the rest of the maps.
Yeah, not very CS-like, but I don't know. Valve, they've just got this uncanny ability to just push updates out, and in the end they just figure it out. Like, it always works out in the end, whether they debuff a gun or something like that. Like, even the AUG was bouncing out of it. Like, people still prefer the AUG over the M4, but I still feel like it's balanced out a lot, and over time it just all seems to work out. So I don't know what's happening there, but
so would you are you happy with the AUG rebalance, would you say?
I think it was needed, but like, the CT should be able to hold an angle with an M4 and not get one beat by the peeker's advantage from the T side.
Yeah.
But the AUG, I feel like, is too overpowered for that, to have a scope to zoom in where you can just, just spray down 3 or 4 players without even the T's having a chance to trade. Like the T should have to utilize utility and flash the CTs off the line instead of you being able to win a game by lurking at Palace in a ramp or Mirage or something like that. You should have to be able to utilize your utility and play as a team. So I feel like it's a step in the right direction, but they need to fix it so that the org gets buff and the M4s, like the CTs, are able to hold an angle with the M4 and punish the Ds.
So obviously bridging off that, then the economy changes were still very controversial at this point in time. People going for it and against it. Personally, I don't know. I haven't totally made my mind up, but it seems like it's not the best thing in the world because it does seem to benefit the losing team, right? You're going to build up a lot more economy, and it does add a lot more rifle rounds. And as when you're watching that, it's more entertaining, right? More rifle rounds is more entertaining, but I don't know whether or not if that translates well to just a casual audience, because now you've got to explain this weird economy system to why they can keep buying in after losing, and also, is it a good idea to have it so that you can come back at any point just off one round win, almost,
Yeah.
So what are your opinions on it? Sorry.
It really hurts the CTs. So say if you're on CT side and you're playing a play style, or you're having like really close rounds, like say you're 8-0 in rounds, but you've only had 2 players or 1 player or 3 players alive in the last couple of rounds. That means that you can get reset instantly, and the T's are going to chain like 4 rounds off that. So you're just going from 8-0 up, dominating them, to the T's. They could get a lucky clutch or something like that, and then they're in control of the economy, and then they can chain 4 rounds in a row. If they do their anti-ecos properly, they're not going to have to eco again, even if you win all those rounds. So it can be really broken for the CT side, but it just means that everyone has to be more conscious of like their economy, when they shouldn't be going for exits, when they should be saving, when shouldn't be throwing your life away when the T's are eco, trying to farm stats and stuff like that. Like, you need to play good CS on the CT side so you don't get reset even if you're dominating them. Like, you can't have close rounds where you have two players alive every round on CT side.
Yeah, because it's almost like it sort of stops or makes it more difficult for you to just destroy a lineup or a team. You know what I mean? Like you can go in and just, if they get one lucky clutch, that's a few rounds off you, right? So it does make it harder for that to happen, but it also makes it a lot more difficult to form a huge comeback, because then you get on the side of making all that money, and then they only have to win 1 round, and suddenly that might be game over, So
it is a bit rough though, because like, if it's the first half, say the CTs like chain 8 rounds into like eight rounds in a row. That means they have to work like the loss bonus back up, and then by the time that's happened, it could be like 8-5 towards the CTs. But like, the money bonus is kind of irrelevant by then, because like no one's gonna have, like, you can't reset each other. You can't the T's like can't eco again because they've worked all that money up. So it's just gonna be pure rough rounds from there. If that makes sense. Yeah.
So I'd like to go over the top 10 with you as well. Just obviously get your opinions. Oh, sorry, excuse me, Jesus. Get your opinions. Obviously, if you need XeshTV or whatever to bring that up. But so I'll actually have a look at the current top 10 rankings according to XeshTV. Now, I don't necessarily totally go off this because it's a bit,
XeshTV is pretty brutal.
Honest. I'll be honest with you, I have absolutely no clue how Advanced just made it to number 5. I don't really know how that one works out, but apparently if you just create a new lineup, XeshTV puts you above people. So who knows how that works?
It was in the month where we beat Order like 2-1 or something. We got like -2 points or something like that month. It was pretty weird, but that's just how it is. Yeah.
So obviously, so you can use that as a basic idea of what teams there are.
Just to remember all the names.
Just to remember names. But obviously, so right now for me, my top 10, would be Greyhounds at number 1, Order at number 2, Chiefs at number 3, you guys at number 4, Paradox at number 5, Avant number 6, and then number 7 and 8 I'm sort of throwing up between Athletico and Genuine because of last night's results, or recent results should I say. 9 for me is Ground Zero, and then a 10, it gets very shaky, but I have Jade right now. So for you, we'll start with the top 4. So would you agree, what would your top 4 be?
I don't know. I feel like it's pretty hard at the moment because there's been no big qualifiers so far. Like these qualifiers will tell nearly everything in the rankings.
Yeah.
I feel like teams haven't shown everything, especially everyone's picking up new play styles as well. Like in the scene, we haven't seen much of it before, but everyone's playing like really different play styles. Like Order's playing really aggressive. Chiefs, I'm not too sure. I haven't scrimmed them much, but like last night, whoever's yelling seemed to be doing really good and changing it up a lot. Greyhound just play really like percentage CS, so that's pretty good. And they've got pretty nice players, so it works out well as well. But I'd probably go Greyhound first. Chiefs and Order, I feel like they're pretty close to being tied.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure what's happening with them. Paradox. So Greyhound, Chiefs, and Order kind of tied. So us, Breakaway behind them, and then probably Paradox, Avant, Ground Zero, maybe Genuine right next to Ground Zero, like really closely.
Yeah.
We were scrimming them recently, and they were playing like really good. Like they were just like messing with our rotations heaps as well. They were just playing they improved a lot over the time that we were scrimming them. So that was pretty good to see. So I'd probably put them pretty closely to Ground Zero, if not tied with Ground Zero. But it'll be interesting to see what Moe does with the Ground Zero lineup. Yeah, because they're pretty like Zemp and Void. I feel like are pretty inexperienced players, but if he uses them correctly, it could be a devastating lineup. Like it could be a really good lineup. But we'll just have to see how committed a lot of those players are. Because I know Moe is he'll be at work watching demos and stuff like that, so that's pretty cool to see. He's got a lot of dedication. I got a lot of respect for him. But as for 10th, I don't really know who would be 10th. I don't.
Yeah, it gets a bit shaky back there.
Well.
Yeah. At the back end, it gets a bit shaky. So what would make you put Ground Zero? So you talked a little bit about how close you have. See, I see a lot of people, at least recently, talking about they put Ground Zero up there with Avant and
I feel like
and even Paradox sometimes. And for me, I know obviously. So right now we're still in the very start of the year, so it's still online results kind of. And I know you can only really go off BO3 online, and even then it's kind of shaky. But you do have to go off something, right? We have to go off something, and it just seems like, for me at least, Ground Zero's results, I don't know, they just never really seem to turn up at those important matches. But then again, everybody keeps saying, "Oh, they're a legit team," So what exactly makes you put them up that high?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'd probably put Atletico below them and Genuine, to be honest.
Yeah,
and then I'd put Paradox number 5th, just behind us, and then I'd probably tie Avant and Ground Zero up as what would it be, 6th and 7th? I'd tie them right next to each other, and then Genuine just behind them. So I'd probably I wasn't thinking too much of
it's all right,
the rankings, but sorry, what was the question before? It was
just your opinions on Ground Zero, but you've answered that well. So what are, out of those, obviously, I guess 4 downwards, you have the teams like Paradox, Avant, Ground Zero, Genuine, Atletico as well, maybe. Out of those teams, who do you find is the most difficult to match up against?
I feel like any of them can have extremely close matches or even beat us on their day, especially if we're not feeling it. We've been much more on and off recently. That might just be due to burnout, or we just haven't been practicing hard enough, which this boot camp should fix. we're not just gelling as much recently, but like I feel like anyone on their day of those teams could beat like us or any of the like below us, if that makes sense.
Right. So
so
no one in particular then that sort of stands out as particularly difficult.
Really.
No, not really.
We find it quite hard to play against Ground Zero because they just play like a very different style. Like Zemp and Void always seem to pop off when they play against us and always play extremely well. And then it should be interesting to see how Ivanka with APOC, because she was like really good in Chiefs, and Soji's been playing really good recently, and it should be interesting to see how Ivanka, especially since he's on the AWP now. So that should be good.
Well, okay, so this is where we get into those IEM predictions, because predictions and as well as expectations, should I say, for you guys. So I'm assuming that you guys are definitely expecting to sort of qualify for this IEM Sydney. That's the goal, I guess. Yeah,
that's the goal. But like, I think it suits us really well. Like at the first, when these ESL groups came out, I wasn't too happy.
Yeah,
but they put like us, Chiefs, and Order in the same group, and I was like, "What the fuck's happening here?" But, like the calls turned out really good. So since we beat Order, Chiefs, we need Chiefs to beat Order as well. So Order get knocked out. We don't have to verse them. The best possible scenario would be that. So Chiefs beat Order get knocked out. Greyhound qual for the first qualifier, or we qualify for the first qualifier, but that's going to be like the most competition. And then if we don't qualify for the first one, and Greyhound qual or Chiefs qual, that means that we only have to verse either one of them. Like we don't have to battle between all top 4 teams. We only have to battle between one top 4 team to make IM Sydney. So,
and if you had your selection, who out of those 3 teams, who do you want to play?
Probably Order.
Yeah.
But I don't think that can physically happen. But probably Chiefs behind that, because we don't do too well against Greyhound.
Yeah, I mean nobody does. It's it's rough.
At it. Yeah.
Oh Jesus! Excuse me. Got a horrible cold that I will have for all eternity. I don't know why. I'll probably drop dead in the next few days. Who knows?
It's pretty rough.
Morbid. Yeah, I know. Well, you know how it is. So Paradox just qualified as well for that the Oceanic Close qualifier for Sydney.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously getting into that actual IEM. So we'll go into a hypothetical world here where you qualify for Sydney.
Yeah.
Out of the teams that are going, I can give you a link as well if you need this. But out of the teams going, who do you think? Who would you like to play against?
At IM Sydney.
I'll chuck you the link for you.
I just opened it now.
Okay. Because obviously you got Renegades.
Scary.
Yeah, it's I can imagine.
Yeah.
You got Renegades, FaZe Clan, MIBR, Ninjas in Pajamas, Team Liquid, Mouse Sports. So there's NRG, Fnatic, Big, E United, Vici, MVP, Boot.
You'd probably want to be going for like someone like E United or like
or Heroic.
Boot or something like.
Yeah, and even then you got up against like Freiburg.
Yeah,
I mean
so much. Yeah, Mertz.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, I mean, you could literally go up against the number 2 team in the world at this tournament.
Yeah, it's pretty. You just got to hit that boot camp, and hopefully you get some really good practice in the couple of days leading up to the tournament when you're in Sydney. Versus like the top teams, and just hope for the best. Come up with a game plan, and then just go from there.
So yeah,
take it day by day.
What would be that? So obviously you elaborated on a little bit there, but like, what would be the mindset, do you think, for your team going up against such obviously high caliber lineups? What's like? Is it just, all right, guys, we're just going to go in and play our game and see what happens and use it as a learning experience, or is there is there a certain style that you want to try out, or I don't know, something like that?
I usually just go by just one kill at a time.
Yeah.
Just one round at a time.
Yeah.
usually come up with a game plan, like what you want to do best, or what you want to do the first couple of rounds and something like that. But it's a lot of just adapting, because we haven't been scrimming top 4 as much, so it's a lot of just adapting as the game goes on, and just making sure that everyone in the team's on the same page and how everyone wants to play.
Fair enough. So it's more of just obviously I can't, so that will be a LAN tournament as well, right? So
What would it?
I think, isn't it the group stages is LAN? Like you play at the event?
Derby?
No, not the Derby. If you qualified for it, it would be.
Oh, I am Sydney. Yeah, for sure.
So I would like to ask you about that, actually, just in LANs in general. What do you think is the main difference between playing in a LAN setting versus playing online? Aside from the obvious, you're not at home.
Yeah. It's probably nerves. There's a lot. Some people get some nerves. You won't be able to hear as much or learn, so you can flank a lot more. You don't get as much information if you're relying on footsteps and stuff like that. And the atmosphere as well. If you have a really team that can get down at LAN, you can hype it up and you can get on that roll.
Yeah.
Versus Order, I was down 0-15 in the first half. It was something rough. I was 0-13 or 0-15 or something. I hadn't got any kill in the first half. And I got pissed and I just started screaming, got a kill or something like that. And then, the lad just got held, all the boys just got hyped up. And we just took it from there, just one round at a time.
So obviously that energy is a lot more transferable than when you're at LAN, because you can sort of, vibe together and go, right, let's go at it. Let's do the last event. Or the last.
Obviously it's different in every team. Like Ants don't usually get too much hyped up. They're usually just pretty chill.
Just sort of sitting there, just straight faced. Who knows what he's even thinking? I don't even know if he's thinking about CS, to be honest. Whenever they put the camera on him, I'm like, he could be thinking about literally anything.
Wants a Red Bull.
Yeah, he just wants a Red Bull. That's all he's thinking, just in his head, just a Red Bull, just spinning around. Just crazy, man. So, would you say that's obviously an interesting thing about the hype, because people have different opinions on whether or not they think that sort of being super energetic and being a hype guy is good for the team. So would you say that's a benefit? Because I know it happens quite a lot for the AU scene. Exactly, there's a lot of energy there, very built on sort of cheering and that sort of very Australian
chair slaps and everything.
Sports culture. So do you think that's a benefit? Or what would be some of the downsides and obviously upsides of that sort of energy? In your opinion, if there is any downsides?
Yeah, if you're getting really hyped up, you can try to end the game quickly, go for too many plays, and try to be the hero. Your mind can get cluttered with not so much more of the local rounds, but your mind can probably just get cluttered.
Yeah.
With just we're doing this, we're beating the team and stuff like that. But it just depends on the team, what personalities you have. But in Australia, it is, as you were saying, everyone's usually really hype. The personalities, everyone wants to win everything. So the personalities usually get pretty hyped. Everyone's usually screaming after a round or a kill, saying nice or whatever.
Nice, the classic, the brilliant. That's amazing. One of my favorite parts about CS is that scream right there. That and people screaming, he's pushed short, or he's lit. Either one of those. Brilliant. There's so many great calls. So would you say that sort of having that energy, because I've always been interested in that, do you think that sort of alleviates some of the adrenaline? Because when you're in that situation where you've got a you've got a 1v3. Obviously, I'm no pro player, right? But for me, if I'm in a situation like that, during it, no problem, right? Very steady. But then after it, regardless of if you win or lose, then that's when it hits you. Yeah. So, do you think that sort of that can help that being energetic, or does that sort of almost make it a little bit worse?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think it can make it a bit worse. Your mind gets cluttered. Yeah. After the moment, you got to kind of wake yourself up.
Yeah. Shake yourself off.
Midway through freeze time, you're like, oh shit! All right, what are we doing, lads?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good for the energy though. There's more benefits for sure.
Fair enough. So, obviously, right now we have the Star Ladder tournament going on. I don't know if you've been following this or have you been more focused on.
No, I'm following it. Yeah,
Right,
all the lads are watching it.
following the boys.
Yeah.
So, obviously, right now, Renegade's looking really, really good, right? They're quite possibly looking the best they've ever looked. You could say maybe Vox M&R very early on, they had that tournament where they took maps off NIP. I think it was Fnatic as well when they were looking really good.
Competitive CS then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, believe me, it was a long time. It's been a long time before I've been like, yes, an Australian team. It's been very just like, and we didn't make groups again. You know, like this, the sad all the time. But right now, it's great. I mean, made playoffs of the major, which is a huge accomplishment just for the scene in general. To have an Australian team make it that far is probably a big, a very important thing in general just for our scene. And I can imagine that maybe somewhere down the line, people might be talking about that run. That's if that is, very well. If Renegades keep going with this form, they could even place further up. But do you know what I mean? Like that sort of ricochet of how that affects the rest of the scene. But obviously they're playing really well right now. So
I think it was a big mood boost for sorry, where are you going?
Yeah, no, keep going.
I think it was a big mood boost for Australia seeing Liaz and Grat really just destroy up top EU teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of doubt. I'd say, admittedly, in Liaz when he went into the support role, I thought it was going to be hard. It's hard coming from that style mentality.
Yeah.
Where you're the best player on that team, and then you go to your dream is to be in a top team, just destroying everyone else, and then you go to this team, you're putting this support role, you're not getting the frags.
Yeah.
And then at the start they're losing a couple games, so that just gets more on your head. And for him to push through that and realize I need to be the support that this team needs. I need to have a good mentality. Things have changed. We can still win this. We can still be a really top team is really incredible. And then Greta's faction as well to just come out and just start clicking heads and got the dirty mo going on and just destroying people and he doesn't even care.
Rep in the
It's
end.
great to see. Yeah. Especially it opened up more room in Australia for players as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. It sort of alleviates that chokehold that in a way Renegades kind of puts on the scene, because it's almost like all the top teams in Australia, all those players, their goal is let's get to Renegades. Do you know what I mean? Is that how it feels at least? From your perspective?
I don't know. I don't think there's much room in Renegades, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because how much does that option come around?
Yeah.
I was surprised when they tried to pick up Australian players. I think more of the goal is teams want to be good enough in Australia and be so dominant to move to Europe or something and just get out of here because it's just so isolated. Yeah,
for sure. So obviously, if you have those serious, results, then you could move over to EU or NA, whichever one you wanted. Jesus, I've lost my train of thought here. That's what it was. So obviously, those Grat and Liaz joining Renegades almost seem to benefit JKS and XeshTV in this sort of strange way where we're almost seeing this form that they had way back and now it's come back. So do you think that those, in a way, getting those those new players in has sort of given them energy back from as a player perspective? Do you think that has any sort of aspect to how they've improved?
Honestly, I have no clue because you never know. No matter how much you think you know, you never know what's going on internally inside a team, in terms of mindsets or personality types when they're in a team, they're in an enclosed environment. It's really all up in the air. I think it's really cool how Az has been playing. When he's IGLing, he's just fragging insanely. His calls are really good. It's beautiful to see, and I'm really happy for him. I'm happy for Renegades because they all seem genuinely good blokes. I know Grat's a really nice bloke, and it's great to see him up there. I haven't talked to Lee as much, but he seemed really nice as well. They all just seem like solid blokes as well. So I'm happy for him. It's good to see them succeed.
Yeah, It is. I mean, it is that sort of level of pride, and I think that's why going into these tournaments, it's so much nerves just watching them play and hoping that they win. But obviously, for this most recent matchup, they've got NIP going into this playoffs, which is I guess for Starlight. Right. So they've done pretty well with that seed. I mean, out of all the teams coming through, I mean, obviously there is some level of benefit. Let me just open this up so I can
correctly, like their side of the bracket was not stacked at all.
Yeah, they definitely.
I looked at it before.
Yeah. So actually, I would say it's the other way around, because you got NRG versus Vitality, Fnatic versus North, and then our side, we either have to play, we have to beat NIP, and then Na'Vi and ENCE. So it's going to be heavy, but
rough, Renegades.
But obviously, going into that matchups, for me personally, I think it's obviously a pretty decent one. You could always get North, I guess, which would have been better, but NIP, unless in short of some kind of crazy Nip Magic 2014 throwback where Get Right just stomps on us, we should maybe be all right here. So, what's your opinion? Do you think this is a good matchup for them?
If ENCE beat Na'Vi, so I was watching, how ENCE are doing those YouTube videos weekly at every tournament.
Yeah.
Remember them talking about the Renegades matchup, and they don't like Renegades, playing against their style.
Yeah.
So if ENCE
very similar, very similar, those two teams.
Yeah, I think if ENCE beat Na'Vi and Renegades go up against ENCE, I think it should be a good matchup. To watch, but it just seems like all these matchups seem beautiful to watch.
I mean, it's crazy to think that Renegades have a legit shot of making it a grand final here. So
even winning it, man, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
They
definitely
could beat any team in this. Any team in these playoffs, they could beat.
They're almost, in a way, maybe the number 2 favorite team to make it to win it. You know what I mean? You could say Na'Vi maybe, and then Renegades there. But obviously, you talked a little bit about ENCE. So personally, I'm not. It's one tournament, right? They did really well, and it is amazing they went to the final of the major, fairy tale storyline, etc., etc. But do you think that? I almost think that run sort of overshadowed how well the Renegades were playing, and I thought that especially in the group stages, Renegades almost looked more impressive than ENCE did. So when it comes to ENCE, that lineup, do you think there is longevity there, or?
Well, watching the boss tournament, I think they got fucked over on round difference or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a couple rounds.
That was.
I think I watched back in their demos, and I feel like they read the game really well. They had multiple on Mirage, they had multiple A busts for when the CDs were playing heavy mid map, and the IGL events. That, it was just reading them perfectly. There was just nothing they could do. And then watching the demos going on to SASS, they had really good protocols of what. No, I guess you could say the hierarchy of utility should be, the priority of where you should be throwing stuff and what map control you should be taking. And they've just got a lot of the basics down really good. And I don't think it's a one-off. I think they will be really good. They might struggle a bit in the next few months because teams have figured out the game style they're playing, but I think they are here to stay for sure.
For sure. So you talked a little bit about watching demos events. So out of those sort of high level teams, which teams do you look at mostly to sort of improve your in-game leading style? Is there a certain team that you look at and go, okay, well, can I follow this template? Obviously, I imagine one of them would be Astralis, but is there a specialist one that you go, that one I can, get a lot out of watching their demos, etc.?
Yeah. I don't know. I've been a Glaive fan ever since he joined Astralis. He just reinvented IGLing and fragging. No one was fragging back then when you IGL. It was unheard of. It was Nico fragging and Angel fragging back then. And then that was it. And then Nico, he made the team play around team and mouse sports as well. I like Nico a lot as well, but Not really for his IGLing.
Yeah.
But like Glaive just he just reinvented it for fragging. But in Australia, I feel like it's very different the way teams play. We're kind of like isolated, so we have our own meta. So there's like you obviously watch the demos, but you got to adjust to the way everyone's playing in Australia as well.
So what would you say the main difference, between the international meta and the Australian meta is? Because you were talking about that. Because obviously I have heard people talk about it before, about there is a huge change in the difference between the way Australian teams play and it's almost, I think I was talking to someone recently about it where he said the mid-round structure of Australian teams isn't as strong as, say, international lineup. So, but obviously that's someone else's opinion. What would be your sort of difference?
I haven't thought about it too much, but I'd say like a year ago, or like just as I started playing top 4 teams and scrims and stuff, I felt like they were trying to play like EUCS, but they weren't like able to. Like they were being like really shitty at it, I guess.
Yeah.
But like now finally everyone's starting to get their own style. Like everyone was trying to play the same style and be better at it, but like everyone's trying to do their own shit now. Like, as I said before, Greyhound play a lot of percentage CS. Order play really aggressive CS. I don't know what Chiefs are doing right now, but they just destroyed us, and it was pretty good. It was pretty good to watch.
Chiefs magic.
My bum's still a bit sore, but there's not much you can do, I guess. It was pretty good. But,
I guess you got to keep going. So,
push forward.
When you look at, obviously, so you were talking a little bit about teams sort of trying to imitate that EU style CS. Do you, as an in-game leader, do you see a difference between sort of so NA and EU? Is there a difference there, or do you think it's more that sort of almost become one now?
I feel like it was. I don't know. Like I felt like Liquid kicking Zeus and Taco was probably like one of the worst roster changes since Kirby leaving Astralis.
Especially if you look at MIBR now.
Yeah, I mean, they're not too good either.
Yeah.
Like, they both got off worse. It was a horrible roster change, but, like, I don't know. I feel like Liquid are starting to prove me wrong. They seem to be still at the same level, but I felt like if they kept working the way they were, like, they could have eventually started to push forward and taken more games off Astralis, but it seems to me that Liquid hasn't changed and MIBR has just gotten worse, so I'm not sure. And you never really know what's happening behind closed doors with teams and stuff. So it's really hard to make judgment on that, I think.
Yeah, so talking about obviously specific players like Taco, obviously has a very support-based style, but I know that a lot of in-game leaders generally tend to talk quite highly of him. So I was wondering what kind of like skills and play styles do you look for in a player, or who do you really like to play? What kind of styles do you like to play with?
What do you mean by that?
So,
like, as in like role types, or
so as in like, is there obviously you have people that are, they play very aggressively, or they'll be really confident in peeking certain angles. You can get very independent players. I imagine things like communication are probably a pretty big thing for an in-game leader, like knowing information and stuff like that. But is there like a specific, I guess almost like a personality, a player personality that you sort of work well with?
That's a pretty hard question, because like coming up, none of us really knew what we were doing. We're all just
work with anyone.
Yeah. Everyone's just trying to learn themselves. Like I've never really played with an experienced player. I've just tried to like learn myself and then pass that knowledge on to my players and try to like mold them to replicate what I think would be or be successful in Australia. But I haven't really played with any experienced players or talked to many experienced coaches or anything like that. But yeah, I guess we're just all trying to learn, I guess. Basically, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, so I do think you guys have been doing really well recently. Obviously, you've made it into this top four. It is really fun to watch Australian CS right now. I think it's been more competitive now than it has been in a very long time watching these top teams get here. So when it comes to breakaway, apart from so actually you could include that as well. But what would your for the rest of this year? What would be your sort of future expectations for where you want this breakaway roster to head?
I'm not sure, to be honest. We've come up with goals for like this season. We're just taking a season at a time.
Yeah.
We just want to qualify IM Sydney at this point. That's our main goal.
Yeah.
And then after IM Sydney, depending on how it goes, we'll come up with more goals and more expectations and making sure they're realistic. Like weekly goals, monthly goals, and then seasonally goals and stuff like that. But yeah, we just want to qualify Sydney at this point. Hopefully we can do that.
All right. Well, so there's one more question. If you were going to give advice to somebody coming up to this IGL role, what would be the sort of number one thing that you'd say to that person when it comes to becoming a better in-game leader?
I'd say learning IGLing yourself is extremely difficult. If you can speak to an experienced player, an experienced IGL for at least for 30 minutes, it's going to equal like weeks of just trying to do it yourself.
Yeah,
like you'll just understand stuff that you just wouldn't have thought of until like 3 weeks later, like instantly, and you can start thinking about that instead of trying to discover it yourself. But watching demos and then trying like to really understand what's happening is a big one as well. Like breaking down why a player is rotating them, why a player threw that smoke then, why did they need to get information, why have they fallen into this setup, why they're playing mid-map, like mid-map, like in, you guys know what I mean? But
yeah.
Just breaking it down like really in depth.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you coming on to the podcast tonight, and it's been really good. So obviously, if you have anything you need to plug for Breakaway or anything, you can go ahead and do that. Or
follow me on Twitter. Follow Breakaway on Twitter. Hook me up.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I appreciate you coming on, mate, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. And I do wish you and the Breakaway boys the best of luck in the future.
Much appreciated.
All right, guys. This has been episode 8, I think, around there of the Temple. So we've got some more players coming up, loads of interviews. I'd love to have you back at some point, J1rah. I'm looking at some sort of formats, almost bringing some minds together and maybe having some deeper discussions.
Yeah,
but
that'll be pretty cool, pretty interesting.
Yeah, so thank you guys for listening in, and I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.